All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to How to Hire and Fire Your Employer. Woo. My name is April Sides. I am a developer at Lullbot. I'm also the lead organizer of Drupal Camp Asheville. And no, I'm not looking to fire my employer. A little bit about my background. I have experience in higher education, government, and agency work. I've taken several leaps in my career. The first one was the hardest, but I've learned a lot in 13 years of full-time employment, and each leap has contributed to my growth personally and professionally, and this journey has led me to being here in front of you today. So why do I care about this topic, and why should you care? Based on results from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, American Time Use Survey, we spend 34% of our awake time at work. It's the #1 activity after sleep and personal care. So that means we spend over a third of our awake time in work and work-related activities. So as Drake says, YOLO, you only live once, life is too short to be unhappy at work. So today we're going to talk about a few things here. What do you have, want, and need? Should I stay or should I go? How do you find the right employer, and how do you fire your current employer? So we're going to start with what do you have, want, and need. This involves personal reflection and introspection. You have to know yourself and what you want and need to know what you're looking for. It's important to be honest with yourself in this process. There are no right or wrong answers. So we'll start with your assets. You have both soft and hard assets. Your soft assets include your knowledge, skills, strength, and network. These are the things you have that you can contribute to an organization. They may be listed on your resume or included in a cover letter, and they help to determine your market value. So consider things like what happens at your organization when you're not at work? What do people frequently compliment you on? To get an outside perspective, ask your trusted contacts. What do you see are my greatest strengths? And if you had to come to me for advice on a topic, what would it be? And then you also have hard assets. Hard assets include your cash, investments, possessions in relation to your financial obligations. These help in risk assessment and salary negotiations. Can you afford a lower salary for better benefits? And if an opportunity doesn't work out, can you pay the bills before your next job? So next, let's think about your personal values. Knowing your personal values will help you make better career decisions. Finding an employer and job that closely match your personal values can lead to better job satisfaction. So if you've never realized your values in a formal list, they're still present, just unconsciously. That's because values are found in the decisions we make in the past. So there's an activity that is most successful with a friend to get an outside perspective, but think about the big transformative moments of your life. Then name 5 values from those stories, and then those will be your personal values, the top 5. This is similar to something called a mountains and valleys exercise, where you think about the highs and lows in your past and find the values that were present or absent. If an organization wants to learn about your values to determine if you're a good match, they may ask you to name someone you admire and why. Now let's think about your aspirations and goals. Aspirations are shaped by your actions and experiences. So in your personal life, what do you do when you have nothing urgent to do? And will someone pay you for your passions? Also think about things that complement your soft assets and past experience so that you can build on your past and continue to grow. It's also important to think about your growth trajectory. So there are 2 types of growth trajectory, steep and gradual. Steep growth trajectory is characterized by being a change agent, being ambitious at work, and seeking new opportunities. And gradual growth trajectory is characterized by being a force for stability, being ambitious outside of work, or simply content in life and being happy in your current role. But note on this figure that both of these different growth trajectories are on the same side of the graph as excellent performance. So one is not better than the other, they're just different. But just remember, it's not sustainable to be ambitious at work and outside of work. And this is a quote from a book called Radical Candor. We all have periods in our lives when our professional growth speeds up or slows down. Allow yourself and your peers the freedom to change. So lastly, let's talk about your work environment needs. Think of these as a spectrum or a slider. So think about what works best for you. So in terms of in-person versus remote, how much in-person interactions do you require? And if you decide to try remote, what will your workspace look like? Also consider the size of an organization, large versus small. A large organization typically has more hierarchy, so they may have more growth and change opportunities. They may also be very process-oriented. If a small organization is owned by another organization, it may operate like a larger organization. And values can be widely different between the sizes of organizations. Also think about the structure, formal versus informal. What do you need to be productive? Do you prefer or need structured or flexible work hours, workspace and tools, or dress code? Also consider the pace of work, slow versus fast. Sometimes slow can be boring, and sometimes fast can lead to burnout. And there are going to be cases where the pace will vary from time to time based on project deadlines, but determine what works best for you. Also think about distraction, like how distractible are you, low versus high? Which office environment is going to work best for you? Will you thrive in offices, cubicles, or open spaces? And what level of interruption are you comfortable with? And this applies to both in-person and remote. Work culture often dictates how available you should be at any given time. Think about what's going to work best for you. And lastly, let's think about travel, none versus lots. Travel could include retreats, conferences, client meetings, trainings. What amount of travel are you comfortable with? So your assets, your values, aspirations, growth trajectory, and work environment needs will evolve over time. Reflect often. If you're familiar with agile software development, think of this as an iterate and grow process for yourself and your career. So how do you decide when you need to leave an organization? First, evaluate your current job. Are you surviving or thriving? Do you have work-life balance? Does your job align with your current aspirations and growth trajectory? And are you experiencing burnout? And I want to take a moment to talk about burnout. There are 3 kinds of burnout. Overload burnout is characterized by working hard, but risking health to pursue your ambitions. Under-challenge burnout is characterized by being bored, having a lack of learning and growth opportunities, and feeling disengaged from work. And neglect burnout is characterized by feeling helpless or incompetent, you can't keep up, and you're feeling unmotivated. These are the signs of burnout. I'm going to read through them. There are a lot of them. But it's really important to know what they are so you will be able to see them and notice them and take care of them. Physical symptoms such as exhaustion most of the time, headaches, muscle aches, getting sick often, a negative attitude about work or your career, feeling like everything is overwhelming or your efforts are futile, neglecting your own needs as if you're a pushover, withdrawing from new responsibilities, challenges, and people, procrastinating, mainly avoiding work or work taking longer because you can't concentrate, short-tempered, especially with colleagues, and difficulty sticking to regular self-care like exercise and eating well, and loss of motivation and optimism. You may not know you have burnout until you hit a wall, and self-care is very important. And also think about these in relation to a friend, a coworker, or even a boss. Adopt the radical candor motto to care personally and challenge directly. Let people know if you think they may be having burnout. So now let's evaluate your employer. After you've had your personal reflection, are your values aligned? Do you respect the leadership? How do you feel about the organization's direction and future? Do you feel appreciated and supported? Are there opportunities for career growth? How is employee feedback received, and do you see results? Are there problem patterns? How are they managed, and are they tolerable or intolerable? How does it feel? Be honest with yourself. So if you like your employer, you don't have to fire them. You can consider exploring other opportunities within the same organization. If that's not an option, you can use your current job and organization as a reference to compare with other opportunities. If you seek a higher salary, request a conversation about increasing your salary before giving notice. Don't use giving a notice as a way to get a raise. This can actually erode trust between you and your employer and sends a message that your job is only about the money. So ABZ Career Planning from the Startup of You is a great tool for planning your next move. So in this diagram here, Plan A is your current job or organization. Plan B is what you will pivot to. It'd be a new opportunity. And sometimes you change to a Plan B because A is not working, but sometimes A is working, yet Plan B seems to have more potential. The best Plan Bs will be different but related to what you're doing now so that you can make use of past experience and continue growth. This plan will be more open-ended. Plan Z, on the other hand, will be more concrete. It will allow you to take on uncertainty and risk. Think of it as your safety net, your lifeboat, your fail-safe option. To build this plan, first identify how to measure when you're tracking towards a worst-case scenario. Then develop a plan that tells you what to do should that happen. That's your Plan Z. So now that we know ourselves better and have a better idea what we're looking for, there's so many organizations out there. How do we find the right employer? We'll start with research. First, consult your network. All of my jobs have been through a network connection. Your network can be one of your greatest assets for career growth. And events like this are perfect for growing your network. Be sure to attend social events, even if you feel uncertain about it. Find yourself a networking mentor, someone you feel comfortable with, and you know that they're going to include you in conversations and activities. Focus on human connections. Play games, have fun, and go to trivia night tonight. Build relationships, because who knows, you might learn about a new opportunity tonight. But also consider having a give-first mentality. Think of ways that you can help others. And you can check job search channels. Who's hiring and what organizations are options. If you're looking specifically within the Drupal community, jobs@drupal.org is a good place to start. We've used Indeed and Dice, as well as Monster.com and LinkedIn. There are a lot of job search websites out there. So once we have some potential organizations, how do we learn more about each of these organizations and compare? So in this scenario, our Plan A is Dunder Mifflin. And how do we know if Initech, Hooli, or Pied Piper is the right Plan B? If you're not familiar with these companies, they are fake companies from TV shows and movies. So you can compare organizations on ratings websites, such as Glassdoor and Comparably. Be sure to look at employee reviews and note posting dates and trends. I believe organizations, like people, can evolve when they decide to. So keep that in mind as you read the reviews. Then visit organization websites. Find their values, find their mission statements, learn about their employee benefits, see if they have any current job openings. Review their portfolio to see if you're interested in working on similar projects. And note their language. How do they talk about themselves? So apply an interview. So I highly encourage you to apply an interview. Applying is not a commitment, and it's an exploration. So don't doubt yourself. Apply if you have some of the qualifications. Let the interview process determine if you're a good fit. You can also gain feedback from the interview process, and that can help you identify any gaps in your skill set. But remember to interview your potential employer as well. Think about the things you learn from personal reflection and use your personal values as a tool for decision making. So ask questions that will give you more insight into how well the organization is aligned with your values. Contact current or former employees of the organization within your network. If you aren't directly linked to a former employees, look for shared connections you may have with these people and request an introduction. Also ask for specific examples to illustrate in the descriptions of the organization. But also be sure to filter your research. Take a step back, take the rose-colored glasses off that make things look better than they are. Consider individual bias and trust. Pay attention to language, distinguish between work and play culture, and look for inconsistencies between your sources. So how do we collect and compare all this information? Spreadsheet, of course. Surprised I didn't come up with this myself. This is an open source Google Sheet from a Twitter post by Joel Khalifa. His handle is not details. This is next level. So you can add your own criteria and add weights to each, score each organization, and then compare the totals. I've typically used a whiteboard to compare benefits and differences. So now let's talk about evaluating risk of a specific opportunity or offer. So first thing to think about is, what is the worst case scenario, and is that tolerable or intolerable? Can you change or reverse the decision you made midway through? Is plan B doable? Is there a specific long-term commitment? Some opportunities may require years of commitment. In my experience, agencies typically have a 90-day check-in to see if things are working out. That might allow for an early change if things aren't. And sometimes agencies offer contract work prior to offering an official position to test things out. And then, can you get to a new plan B or Z relatively quickly? It's important to remember that uncertainty doesn't equal risk. You will never be 100% certain. When an opportunity is uncertain, it doesn't mean it's risky. Some of the greatest opportunities have the most question marks. And consider age and stage. What will the risks be to you in a few years? Consider your hard assets and obligations. Different life situations affect your ability to take on certain levels of risk. And risk is personal. Go after opportunities that others may see as risky, but you don't. And be sure to evaluate all the benefits of a job, not just the salary. Experience, knowledge, and connections can allow you to pivot into a wide range of new plan Bs. This opportunity could be a stepping stone to a bigger and better experiences. And look for opportunities that have a high short-term risk but low long-term risk. Seek to build your resilience with frequent contained risk-taking. If you're currently in a low-risk plan A, experiment with risk in side projects. Maybe even within the Drupal community. Find an initiative or project that's promising and express interest in contributing. Think of risk-taking like a flu shot. You get a small dose of the flu, a small contained dose of the flu, which makes you resilient against the flu. But if you don't find risk, risk will find you. The only long-term answer to risk is resilience. It sounds scary, but it's true. Safety is relative. For example, a government job is typically considered a low-risk job until the government shuts down for a month. The unexpected will happen, and resilience is your secret weapon. So the 10-10-10 decision-making tool may also be helpful. How will you feel about this decision 10 minutes from now, 10 months from now, and 10 years from now? Also, waiting to make a decision can be good. It helps to avoid an emotional decision. That's why people say sleep on it. But just be aware of analysis paralysis. So now let's say we have an offer. Let's talk negotiation. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. It's my motto. Salary negotiation is important. It's easier to increase your salary before you start than afterward. And remember that your salary growth builds throughout your career. If you don't negotiate, you could be leaving money on the table. And just think of it as simply part of the process. But it's important to express excitement and flexibility throughout the negotiation process. And don't be afraid to ask questions. What are my career progression opportunities? How is the salary decided? Typically organizations will increase their offer, but there are cases when the salary isn't flexible, and you just have to figure out what works best for you. So these are some websites that have tools to research your potential counteroffer. Just be sure to account for the organization's location, size, and industry, as well as factor in your experience, education, and performance. And also search multiple sources because they each have their own unique set of filters that vary results. In addition to salary, think about negotiating your start date. Be sure to consider your fulfillment of obligations to your current employer. You can likely find these requirements in your employee agreement, contract, or handbook. If you can, take some time off between jobs. It will allow you to start your new opportunity refreshed and energized. Again, be sure to express excitement and flexibility throughout the process. So some things to think about if you want to take time off between jobs. In the US, you have to think about health insurance. If your insurance doesn't terminate immediately, request that your last day be in the beginning of a month, and then request your start date before the end of that same month, so you would be covered for the month. Your employer may provide you with information about COBRA. COBRA allows you to purchase the same insurance you had with your employer. But in my last transition, I learned that COBRA has a retroactive grace period. So if your new job is going to start before the end of the grace period, you could potentially purchase the health insurance if you need it. And it will be retroactively applied to your last day of employment. Also, review your financial assets and obligations and ensure you can pay your bills without a paycheck. So how do you fire your current employer? First, you have to give notice. You'll want to consult your employee agreement, contract, or handbook to know the required notice period. 2 weeks is most common, but it can range from a month to a week. Just be aware if your place of employment has any legal requirements, such as the UK. This is my go-to resignation template, not that I do this often. It includes a simple statement of resignation and notes the date of last day. It also expresses a willingness to fulfill obligations and is thankful for the opportunities experienced with the organization. So before you press send or drop off your letter, be sure to manage your expectations of how your employer will react. Think about what typically happens when someone leaves your organization. This can range from celebration with cake and drinks to being fired, which isn't cool. For some, the standard protocol is that an employee is escorted out of the building by security. Just prepare yourself accordingly. So now you've given notice, now you need to fulfill your obligations. When fulfilling your obligations, you may be asked to work with your manager to transition your work to others. You may even be asked to assist in hiring your replacement. There may also be opportunities to work beyond the notice periods as a contractor until they hire your replacement. Just remember to build bridges, don't burn them. You may find yourself working with them in the future. So this is a photo of Mario Hernandez and myself. We worked together closely at Media Current, and now we're actually working together on a project. He's still at Media Current, and I'm with Lullabot. So you never know what the future holds. Keep in mind that if an organization burns bridges, you can't control that. You can only control your behavior and your actions, and those are a reflection of who you are. Be sure to give feedback. You may have an exit interview. If not, you can provide an exit letter. Just remember to be professional. Try to avoid emotionally charged responses. Also, give the organization data to improve. This could make things better for your coworkers and your replacement. If problems aren't reported or documented, they're less likely to be resolved. So my final thoughts. Introspect regularly and allow yourself to evolve. Grow your network. It will be your greatest asset for career growth. Don't be afraid to apply and negotiate. Don't burn bridges. Build resilience by taking risk. And remember that success for you is also success for your organization. So you aren't being selfish. It's a win-win. If you're interested in this topic, I'm an avid audiobook listener, and these are some of my favorite books that I've been listening to on this topic. Radical Candor is a great management-focused book. It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work is a great read. And I have a few stickers that you can put over things that shouldn't be crazy at work. If you'd like to come up and get one, just a few. The Startup of You is a career building book, and The Alliance is an organizational-focused book that complements The Startup of You. And Tribal Leadership is also a great book. I'm also a podcast junkie. So there is a new session of Work Life with Adam Grant that I'm really excited about. Thrive Global has a podcast, but I also recommend following them on Facebook and Twitter. They have great articles about career building, burnouts, etc. Yonder's a podcast focused on the challenges of remote organizations. Radical Candor is related to the Radical Candor book mentioned before. And Hurry Slowly is a podcast about avoiding burnout. So thank you, everyone, and happy career planning. If anyone has any questions, maybe don't want to be recorded, but that's okay. I'd also remind you that Contribution Day is tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m., and you don't have to know code to give back. And remember to provide feedback for this session on the DrupalCon Seattle webpage, and make me a better speaker.